There may be a few cracks in the U.S. job market. According to the Labor Department, about 240,000 unemployment claims were filed last week. That's up more than 20,000 from the tally taken the week before. Part of the bump in joblessness comes from recently laid off federal employees.
And this week, mortgage rates hit their lowest point since mid-December. The average rate is still around 6.8%, more than double the rates of the height of the pandemic, which is likely keeping a lot of potential home buyers out of the market. At the same time, it is getting a little cheaper to rent in Denver. A new report from Zillow shows monthly rental rates fell just under half a percentage point last month. That was the biggest drop, by the way, in the country, and it's bucking a national trend. Rents went up in all but 3 of the 50 largest metro areas.
So Erik Krom joining us now from Clear Creek Advisors to talk all things economy, and we have a lot to dive into. But let's start with the jobless numbers, right? What does a bump like this in jobless claims say about the health of our economy?
Yeah, it's like most things, it remains to be seen. I think obviously one of the things that the Fed has been struggling with is to try to balance the interest rate issue that we've had and the inflation issue that we've had without sending the economy into a recession. And obviously jobs are a big part of that. So it's just getting started. So I think for right now, it's a lot of wait and see. But, things will have an impact in the short run. But what they do in the long run, I think, is still something we have to watch out for.
And what is your opinion when it comes to mortgage rates? Because even though, as you just heard, and as you know, they are at their lowest in the last month and a half, but they're still really high at 6.8%. So when is that going to go down?
That's an interesting one because, of course, the Fed was on the downward trajectory, but then inflation, has been sticky, it's been stubborn, and with the new talk of tariffs, I think that's another big concern. Could those negatively impact inflation? That's definitely going to slow things down. So last time Powell talked recently, he said that he was not interested in really being too aggressive on the downward trend. So I think right now we're probably thinking they're going to hold, but it'll be interesting to see if, in fact, tariffs happen, ultimately what those do to the inflation numbers and what the Fed action would be.
Let's speak to homeowners for a second here, because with all of the natural disasters we've had, got insurance costs rising, property taxes are rising. Any near future scenario where we could see homeowners having to, potentially give up their homes because they just can't keep up?
Well, I sure hope not. I guess if you already are in your home, hopefully you had a plan in place and you can stick with the plan. I think it's different for home buyers. Obviously, it's a supply and demand issue, but I happen to be looking at homes now, and it's hard not to keep wanting to move up, right? You just, every time you see something a little bit better and a little bit better, and the things you got to think about, obviously, in addition to the price of the house, you got to make sure you're thinking about taxes and you got to make sure you're thinking about insurance. So I think as with most things, you just need to make sure you have a plan going in and try to resist the urge to keep pushing the budget higher.
And let's talk about inflation, because inflation, the annual, it's the hit at 3%. Sorry about that. And a lot of people, this has become almost a confusing word, right? People don't know if it's because of price gouging, inflation, post-pandemic. So what is driving all of this?
Yeah, I think some people think that it's price gouging. If you look at profits from a corporate standpoint, that would not necessarily be the cause. I think it's still really just the cost of all the underlying things that go into the prices. If you think about groceries, it's the cost of food and it's the cost of agriculture. If you think about building, it's the cost of lumber. If you think about manufacturing, it's the cost of steel. So from my perspective, it's still probably those underlying expenses that are driving inflation, but it's always abstract because at the end of the day, you hear all these numbers thrown around, but none of that really matters. What matters is when you go to the grocery store and you're buying eggs and they cost double what they used to cost, or you can't even find them at the moment. So it's an interesting dynamic. I think sometimes it's abstract to think about the actual inflation number itself. But again, it's going to be an interesting time because the conversation around tariffs is really all centered around what's going to happen with inflation. And ultimately, most people think, and the market certainly thinks, that Powell got it right, the kind of quote-unquote soft landing. He did a good job of raising rates in a way that mitigated inflation but didn't push us into a recession. And I think that's what everybody's worried about is a newfound pressure on inflation potentially put him in a tough situation and put the Fed in a quandary yet again.
Yeah, I think you nailed it hit the nail on the head when you started. Just still wait and see. There's still so many questions and things. We have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in terms of change is always something that causes people to worry, and we've got a new administration. There's a lot of change. The market's been volatile recently, so that makes people who are worried we call it confirmation bias. It confirms the reason for their worry, and that is a dangerous thing because it can cause you to want to take a lot of action. But to your point, I think at the moment it's early. Let's wait and see, and make sure you got a plan.
Fair enough. Erik Krom, Clear Creek Advisors, thank you for spending some time with us and shedding some light. We appreciate you.
Thank you for your insight.